After our overview on fats, let's zoom in on fatty acids. These can be short or long-chained, unsaturated, monounsaturated, or polyunsaturated. Then there's also omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, trans fats, yada yada yada. But what do they all mean? First off, a little bit about the structure of a fatty acid. In general terms, a fatty acid consists of an acid group and a hydrocarbon chain. In simple terms, it looks like this. The acid group gives it the name fatty acid. The chains have different lengths depending on the fatty acid. We can make a differentiation here. Short-chain fatty acids have less than 4 carbon atoms in the chain. But you don't find these very much in foods. Medium-chain fatty acids are 6 to 12 carbon atoms long. These fatty acids are rather easy to digest. If there are more than 14 carbon atoms in the chain, we call them long-chain fatty acids. These are the fatty acids that occur most often in food. Another classification separates between saturated and unsaturated fatty acids. But that has nothing to do with how full you feel after eating them. Saturated fatty acid means that it is saturated with hydrogen. That means that hydrogen, shown here as white balls, is attached to the 2 free carbon arms. These fatty acids are burned to make energy or stored in fatty tissue. They are also needed for building cells. In addition, these are the fatty acids that the body can make itself from carbohydrates. But too much saturated fat can raise your cholesterol level. Whether or not that is dangerous is the subject of intense and long-lasting discussion. The consistency of the straight, unsaturated fatty acids is quite solid, as the fatty acids can pack together quite closely. Coconut oil and butter contain lots of this type of fatty acid. Unsaturated fatty acids have a kink, so they're not nice and straight like the saturated ones. Due to a double bond between 2 carbon atoms, less hydrogen can be attached to the carbon tail, so the fatty acid is no longer completely unsaturated. We're missing a pair of white balls. Fats with these fatty acids have a fluid consistency at room temperature, as the fatty acids aren't squashed so closely together. You can also divide these further into monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. Monounsaturated simply means that there is only one double bond, so one single kink. Then, polyunsaturated fatty acids have more than one double bond. For example, olive oil contains many monounsaturated fatty acids. Polyunsaturated fatty acids act as, for example, signaling substances in the body and are important for the cell walls and immune function. However, they cannot be made by the body itself, so we call them essential. Surely you've already heard of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. These are exactly this type of polyunsaturated fatty acid. Omega-3 is found, for example, in certain fish, such as mackerel or salmon, and is anti-inflammatory. Most people don't get enough of it. Omega-6 fatty acids are found in sunflower seeds, for example, and most people get enough of them from food. By the way, fatty oils are mixtures of various so-called fatty acid triglycerides, which contain many unsaturated fatty acids. That's why they tend to be a fluid. Okay, enough about the good fats. Let's look at the shadowy side of fatty acids, the hardened fats. That is, fatty oils which have been hardened so when the structure has been modified. Then, the oils become fats. Why do we do that? It's quite easy. Because, as is so often the case, it is cheaper for the food industry. This stuff is mostly found in margarine, fried foods and frying fat, or pre-packaged, industrially manufactured cakes or sweets. The hardening process produces trans fatty acids. This happens either when the conversion is not complete or when the double bond in the carbon chain is altered. Then that is called isomerization. This isomerization can also occur by heating fat to high temperatures, for example when pan frying or deep frying. The effects of consuming trans fatty acids includes, for example, an increased risk of stroke or heart attack, as the levels of cholesterol in the blood increase. Incidentally, the German Nutrition Society recommends that around 30% of your daily energy intake comes from fats. Of that, 10% should be saturated fatty acids, 10 to 13% monounsaturated, and the rest polyunsaturated. So cheers, and have fun analyzing your next meal. Before you chow down on your pizza, let's do a short recap. There are short-chain, medium-chain, and long-chain fatty acids, as well as saturated and unsaturated fatty acids. The saturated ones are straight, and the unsaturated ones have one or more kinks due to one or more double bonds. Trans fats form during the hardening of fat and by excessive heating, and they aren't very nice. It's best to avoid the foods where it is found, but generally, you can't really go wrong with a balanced diet. If you're really hooked now, or if you just have more questions about biology, check out our website, www.thesimpleclub.com, or just get our app. See you soon!